Okay, well, let us have, I want to welcome Dan Ogola. He's known to everybody here, I think almost everyone, the leader of Madiba Foundation, the CEO, and it's great to see you, Dan. Please introduce our guest.
Good evening, everybody. Dan Ogola is my name. I'm the CEO and the founder of Madiba Foundation. Today, we have a very great discussion on nursing career paths. And just to start us up, as we are all aware, nursing is a healthcare profession focused on health improvement, prevention of illness and injury, and caring for the ill and disabled. Nurses work with individuals, families, and communities to maintain or improve health and quality of life. And to that, I salute all the nurses, practicing nurses, lecturing nurses, and all that support the work of nurses. In today's discourse, we are privileged to have none other than Judy Pugach. And I wanted just to give you a little bit about Judy. You will be impressed who Judy is. So she has a very impressive profile. Judy is the Vice President, Regulatory Affairs from 2018 to date in PIH Health Inc. She does the work of oversight. The PIH is oversight of regulatory compliance for 3 hospital systems consisting of 1,125 acute care beds, as well as medical group with 600 physicians, oversight of emergency preparedness program for the enterprise. In 2014-2018, Judy was the Chief Nursing Officer at the same PIH Health Hospital, carrying out the work of oversight of acquisition and transition of new hospital into the PIH health system. I just wanted to mention a few, because if you are to read the JD or the CV of Judy, you will, I don't want to read it all because I don't want to stop whetting your appetite to know more about Judy. Judy, in the year 2008-2014, which is the last part that I'll mention, she was the Vice President, Enterprise Quality, Patient Safety, Accreditation and Licensing. It was in the Intercommunity Hospital in California as a member of hospital's executive leadership team, oversight of the enterprise program for quality, infection prevention, accreditation, licensing, patient safety, which all of us love, patient experience, public reporting. May I take this opportunity to welcome Judy Pugach. Judy, the platform is yours. We welcome you and we love you. Welcome.
Hello, Judy.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Oh, good. I should say good afternoon or good evening. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction.
Thank you. Let's introduce James and Esther, and then we're going to go ahead and have Judy begin, or actually James, I think will begin sharing kind of about his career pathway.
Apart from Judy, we are also privileged to have our own James Abuti, who is the principal of Madiba College of Health Science. I would give opportunity for James to just say hi, then thereafter to hand it over to Esther.
Thank you so much, Dan, for your introduction. And we're doing things a little bit differently today. We're asking each one of our panelists to take a little bit longer to actually talk about their career pathway. And so we'll start with James. And we're really very, very excited to have the principal, the leader of Madiba College on this call today, sharing his own experience. And I don't know if all the students have heard his story, but I find it really fascinating. And James, would you kind of take some time and walk through all the different steps of where you started and where you are now, and share with us any really key insights about your journey. We're here today because we want to honor the career of nursing, and it's very different, the pathway for every person. But we want to give some insights to the younger people on this call about how they might navigate their lives, their work lives, and find the most fulfillment as a nurse. And so it's great to have you on the call, James. And would you please start us off? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. My name is James Abuti, as you have heard. I'm the college principal for Madiba Foundation College of Health Sciences. I am a nurse by profession. My journey to nursing started when I completed my secondary school education, and I applied for a diploma in nursing. And I was very excited to have gotten this opportunity because it was the only opportunity that I had. And when I received the calling letter to join the nursing college, I was very excited. And when I joined with a lot of determination, with a lot of energy. And therefore, while in the training, I really focused on my career. I was very good, I can say. I performed well, both in theory and both in practical. I passed my exam well, and immediately after graduating, my own unique behavior while in college was, I was devoted to patient care. At times I would go even during weekends. I would go to the ward even odd hours to take care of the patients. And at one point, we had a patient who had poisoning, and I took care of that patient as a student until the patient recovered. When I did that, the principal acknowledged my efforts and wrote that one on the notice board, that I took care of the patient overnight and the patient recovered. I was really determined. And after graduating, now I got an employment with one of the church organization, and they employed me as a junior nurse. And I started working, and I worked in different departments, and my work was really outstanding. Outstanding in terms of patient care, in terms of taking care of the relatives. And at one point, I was promoted to be the nursing officer in charge of the hospital for some period of time. But I had to be approached again that I should go to the School of Nursing and become a lecturer. So I decided to go for the teaching course because I thought, and it is my belief, that those who pass through my hands, I have one Abuti, but I qualify 100 Abutis, so that those particular good care that I would have given to my patients, I would want the students to do them in my absence. However, during all this journey, I have also given me an opportunity to go through the different trainings. I have done education in nursing, and I have also specialized in at master's level in interest with the midwifery. That is my brief history.
Thank you so much, James. That's really fascinating and wonderful. Thank you for telling us some detail of that story. So let's move on. The wonderful thing about Judy is that I was fascinated. I wanted to have Judy speak because she's now a leader over 3 hospitals doing administrative leadership of huge hospitals down in the LA area. And she started as a staff nurse taking care of patients like every one of you in that room right now. And we don't know, where each one of you is going to end up and where your travels will take you. But Judy's got a really interesting path, and I'm excited to hear you share it. Judy, thank you.
Thank you, Diane. I would never have thought that this would be my path, but my journey began over 40 years ago, which is mind-boggling to me to think about my career 40 years later. I went to nursing school in New York and graduated with a diploma in nursing and began my career at the bedside in the intensive care unit. I went right into the intensive care unit in a university teaching hospital in New York. And my passion has always been at the bedside with the intensive care patients for about the first 10 years. And then as things changed, my family decided to move to California. So we picked up and moved cross country. And I've continued my career out here in California, also at the bedside. And I'm actually at the hospital that I'm at right now. The chief executive officer approached me one day. I had been working on in the ICU, and I had been overseeing some of the quality reporting data as part of my responsibilities. And he approached me and said, I would like to take an opportunity to put you in a different role. And the role was quality management. And it had never occurred to me that that would be my path, because my passion is at the bedside. And then I love giving patient care. But I felt like I could make a bigger impact at a different level. And so I took an opportunity. And one thing I want to say is when an opportunity presents itself from your chief executive officer, you take it because they don't ask twice. So when I accepted this opportunity, it really opened so many different doors for me. And my path went into a much more administrative role. But I really believe that the reason I am able to do what I do today is because of my experiences at the bedside earlier in my career. And so as my journey continued, and as our organization grew and we acquired an additional hospital, my same boss, my chief executive officer, asked me if I would assist them in an acquisition of an additional hospital. And so I became the chief nursing officer of that hospital. And again, I wouldn't be able to do those things without having had all my experiences at the bedside. Because one of the things that I think is so important is when you're leading a group of nurses is to be able to appreciate what they are going through. And so all my experiences have really assisted me in the current role that I'm in. So now I am back into more of an administrative role. We settled that hospital. It was a complete acquisition. And then I moved back to our flagship hospital in more of a regulatory and oversight position. This past year, I also oversee disaster preparedness. And so as you can imagine, with everything going on these last 2 years with the pandemic, my role took on a completely new challenge with disaster preparedness. And so for 3 hospitals here in the Los Angeles area, which was it was a difficult year for everyone, but I oversaw the disaster component of care for our patients. We were in a full-on code triage disaster mode for the last 18 months and continue to be there. But now I oversee our vaccination program. And so our goal is to get everyone vaccinated, all of our patients vaccinated as we move into this new phase of the pandemic. But my journey has taken many turns, and I would never have thought that I would be here earlier on in my career, but I would do it all over again. Very proud to be a nurse, very proud of all of the things that we have accomplished. And one of my other passions, though, is teaching nursing students. One of the interim roles that I had while also working in the hospital is teaching at a local college. And so teaching the next generation of nursing students is something that I'm able to give back. And so it's something that I really appreciate being able to do.
Thank you so much, Judy. I'm so glad that you are here with us today.
I'm thrilled to be here.
It's really great to have you join the Madiba Abuti community and to share your story. So we're going to hear much more from Judy. I know you all know Esther because she is the deputy principal of Madiba College. I just want you to know that when I visited the last time, Esther took me around with her to CIA County Hospital, and I watched some of you students doing your work. And I was so impressed with Esther. And I thought, I just am so happy about the role model she is, what she knows, her integrity, and how she works with students and how she cares about each one of you. And I thought it will be really fun someday for her to watch some of you students as you go through your career. Some are going to end up as educators like Esther. Some are going to work directly in the hospitals or end up as administrators like Judy. But anyway, I just want to say thank you so much for all your amazing work for Madiba College, Esther. And please tell us more about your story.
Okay, thank you. So my nursing journey, I would say, began at an early age and consciously. My mother is a nurse, so I spent most of my childhood in the hospital environment, and I saw what she did and her friends, her colleagues, and I thought to myself, I wanted really to do that, but didn't really consider nursing. I wanted to be a doctor. So I grew up with that feeling of wanting to help the sick and helping them as a doctor. So when I finished my Form 4 examinations, unfortunately, I didn't qualify for the medicine course, but I went for nursing as another option because I felt I could still provide the same service that my mother was providing to her patients. So after studying my nursing at the bachelor's degree, during my college time, we had a lot of, the university I went to had a lot of community initiatives, community services, providing education to the communities and assistance at different levels. So my love for community health started growing at that point, and I knew I wanted to be a nurse, and I also knew I wanted to be a nurse working in the community. So I qualified and graduated, and the moment I stepped into the classroom, I knew that is where I wanted to be. My greatest joy has been working with the students, especially these young ones, and nurturing them to become the nurses I want them to become the best. And our nursing profession in Kenya, I felt that I could impact my small thing, my small change. If we can train one nurse, a unique person, changing the profession, one nurse at a time. So it's very fulfilling when I meet my students after they graduate. I meet them providing services. I meet them in uniform, and it's my greatest joy. Somehow I achieved what I wanted. And also the greatest joy is now the student has qualified and is able to impact positively to their patients and their communities.
Wow, thank you, Esther, very inspiring, each one of you. Thank you so much. And so now we're going to, with that kind of explanation of how our three panelists got to this point in their careers, we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about a few questions. And I want you to know that you can be thinking about questions that you would like to ask. So we're going to have some time for you to directly ask questions, either through the chat, or maybe you wrote some of them down and one student will read them so that we can make sure that we get some of your questions answered, if not all of them, if we can today. But Esther, you're going to start us off and share about some information about the nursing profession. So we're talking about different pathways. There's all sorts of things you can do as a nurse. We've heard 3 different things right here today. So I'm going to put up the information, and Esther, you can go ahead and explain it. I'm sharing some information that the Harvard Business School collected for us for the Madiba Foundation when we're studying, you know, what kind of future looks like for nursing in Kenya. So I want to make sure that you have this as well. Go ahead, Esther.
Thank you, Diane. So this was done by the Harvard Business School, and the table there is about the staffing ratio per 100,000, that is population by province. Now we have the counties, and it was majorly between a comparison between the national coverage and the provinces of Nyanza, Western, Nairobi, Rift Valley, and Nyanza province. So we have different cadres of health professionals. We have nurses, clinical officers, nutritionists, pharmacists, lab technologists, health records, and among others. So I would emphasize more on nursing officers. And we have the registered nurses, and we have the BSN, that is the bachelor's nursing officers. So if to start off with the nursing officers, the BSN nursing officers, has the highest gap. And if you look at Nyanza and Western have quite low ratios, that is 2.7 and 0.09 respectively, with Nairobi having the highest of 69 per 100,000. So registered nurses, where we are training the diploma nurses. That is still, again, quite significant. The ratios are not as high as they should be. Nairobi still has the highest. Then we have Western with 11.7, and Nyanza, where we are, has the 19.0 per 100,000. So this just shows the gaps that exist between the ratios between the population and the required number of officers, not nursing only. And it's important that these needs are addressed to ensure sufficient nurse, patient or nurse population ratios. Yes.
Thank you. And here's the other that also talks to that gap. So this table explains as well about the gap in what is needed. So this is a projection from the Ministry of Health for Kenya, and it is projecting that there will be a gap. So if you look at even 2025, a few years from now, the gap is going down, but it's still a huge gap in general practitioners. But if you look at nurses, look at the gap. It has been going down since 2013. However, that is the biggest need that there is for nurses. So in 2030, there will be a need for 19,000 nurses that actually don't exist because they have not been trained yet. So you're in a profession where there is a great need for you, is what these charts are saying. Would that be how you would summarize that, Esther?
I'm not able to see it.
Oh, you could not see that? Okay, let me put it back there. Can you see it now?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so these are the projections, just as Diana said, between the period, it was between the year 2013 to 2030. So right now we are at the period of 2020 to 2030. So the needs or the gap for nursing has been reducing with, it was 41,000 at approximately 41,000 in the year 2013. Then it dropped, and by the year 2020, it was 35, the projection was 35,685. So by the year 2025, the nursing gaps will be at approximately 28,000. Then it drops to 19,501 in 2030. But yes, it's a drop, but it's still a very high gap for the nurses as compared to the clinical officers, where the gap is significantly going low, and also the general practitioners, which is approximately 2,000 general practitioners. So the nursing gap is it's quite a huge nursing need for the country between by the year 2030.
Great. Thank you so much, Esther. That is good news for those of you who are students. How many of you expect to graduate before 2025? Would you raise your hand? Okay, most of you. So what this means is that there's going to be lots of job opportunities for you. It also means that you should be looking at those younger brothers and sisters and people in your community that you think would be interested in nursing, and encouraging them to do well on their math and their science classes in high school so that they can qualify to come to Madiba College, because there's a great career ahead of them and jobs available. And sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes there's too many people looking for a job, like say in Nairobi, and not enough positions. But especially in the county you are, there is a lot of need for nurses. So thank you so much. I want to open up to James and Judy and have you share with us about some of the different pathways that you see. So we just heard about the need for nursing in particular, but there's all sorts of things that a nurse could do. Different specialties that are out there, different aspects of nursing. So James, would you like to share some ideas with us?
Thank you, Diane. Nursing is a very good career and with a lot of opportunities. For example, when you graduate with the diploma, you may not need to go for degree program. You may think of going and specializing, and the specialization takes 18 months. That is 1.5 years. And you can specialize in pediatric nursing. You can specialize in ICU, that is critical care nursing. You can specialize in renal nursing. You can specialize in ophthalmology. You can specialize in anesthesia. You can specialize in trauma and emergency, psychiatry, among others. And even if you want to specialize at a higher diploma, you can also have education. It is also offered there. So you have a lot of opportunities to choose. You have, it's like a supermarket. Whatever you want, where your heart is what you can take. For example, me, I thought education was the best for me. So I went for education. But again, somebody told me with education alone, you cannot go far. You have to take your nursing career further. That is why you can make yourself relevant. So it is very great. And if you want, even with the diploma graduation, you can move to your degree. Again, you can move to your master's degree. You can move to a PhD degree. So for those who are still young and you are in nursing career, please, you have, the sky should be your limit. You have all that it takes, because your grades of entry are very encouraging. That is what I can say.
Thank you so much, James. That's wonderful explanation of so many places you can go directly after you receive your diploma through Madiba College. And Judy, would you like to add on some of the various leadership roles within a hospital that might be part of this career path for certain individuals?
Yes, thank you. So as your career progresses, again, one of the opportunities, having been a bedside nurse, when you excel in that role and people see that and watch you, they recognize your skill and give you the opportunity to be promoted into more of a leadership role. So when you're respected in the work that you give, people recognize it. And so for me, I was promoted to, at the time, what we call the head nurse of the intensive care unit. And so that really began my path into leadership. And again, as part of that, as a leader, people look to you to be a teacher as well. And so when I had nursing students rotating through my departments, you became a teacher. And so that was recognized by my peers. And I applied for an opportunity to teach at the local college. So that was my way of really being able to be part of the next generation of nursing. So continuing on in a leadership role and then in a teaching role. And then as my career advanced, I also felt that I needed to go back to school to get additional education. And so I focused I had a diploma in nursing. I went back for a baccalaureate degree in nursing. And then as my career seemed to progress towards a leadership role and more of an administrative role, I went back to school again for a master's degree in public health. And so that gave me a lot of insight into community nursing and what's going on outside of the hospital and how could I impact the population health and on a different level. And so my work in the community as part of public health led me into much more administrative role and looking at populations at risk and looking at the data and how do we look at information and help to change behaviors of our communities. And so there's so many different pathways, but I chose an education route that would help support some of the work that I was looking at in the community. And then being able to use that in the hospital as an administrator and working in quality management and performance improvement. So a lot of my career, my later career, has been focused on performance improvement and looking at data and taking that data and seeing how can we improve some of our challenges, our opportunities for improvement. And that's such a big part of nursing because we have the ability to impact so many outcomes for our patients. We call them nursing sensitive outcomes. And our ability to impact the care at the bedside and then the data that reflects in public reporting. One of the things that happens here in the States is our reimbursement is actually impacted by how well our patients do. And so the opportunity to do performance improvement in the hospital setting is so critical to the success of our hospitals and then ultimately our patient outcomes. So there's so many different paths, but I really do believe that the foundation that you get early in your career at the bedside really sets you on a successful journey. It really determines so many of your successes later in your career.
Thank you, Judy. That's really awesome advice. And I love that you bring up quality improvement because this group of students has also been part of doing quality improvement that we do online together. The leaders of Madiba and some of the leaders here at Tiba Foundation, we talk about quality improvement together. That's probably the fastest way up in administration. So I'm glad you brought that up because quality means the patients are healthier and it means the hospital has more money. And so anyone interested in quality improvement is going to go far. I could tell you that. So let's talk about where different segments of a student's life. So how do you, where you are right now? So I'm going to go to Esther first, and I'm going to ask her, so for someone who's in college right now, how can they maximize their educational experiences in college and on the job to explore what's interesting to them and to prepare for future growth? You know, there's a lot of times we don't like look for job announcements and go there. We actually create our jobs, or we create our next job by how we are wherever we are right now. And so as a student, how could students maximize their experiences at college right now to help prepare them for the future? So Esther, would you take that one, please?
So to begin with, the students can maximize the opportunity in college by, first of all, showing up. And you know, when you show up, it means you're available. And by being available, not just being available, but being focused. When you have focus, the student needs to have the goals which they aspire to attain within a specific period of time. And secondly, the student be someone who always asks questions, getting inquiries, consulting. Learning is a continuous process. And when you're working to develop these competencies, we are learning from the qualified staff, we are learning from our teachers, we are learning from the patients. So we'll only get this opportunity to learn if we are open and accept our challenges, and we'll be ready to learn and be ready to be taught. So we make use of every opportunity by being close to our mentors with the objective of learning and getting the competencies and that is needed for the profession.
Thank you, Esther. It sounds like a good message for all of us wherever we are, to be open and always trying to learn. One thing I love about Dan Ogola is he always talks about how Madiba is a learning institution. So even as the CEO is always talking about learning, improving, exposing to new experiences. And so students all the way up to the CEO, it's the same thing. It's great to hear you say that, Esther. Thank you. And Judy, what about in kind of administrative roles, or all the different roles you've had as you've gone through your career? What advice would you have about how to prepare where you are for the next step? Let's say, even if you're on a job, and students, you're on the job every time you're doing a practicum, every time you're in the hospital practicing, you're basically on the job that you have right now. Judy, what can you add for that?
Well, I mean, I love what Esther said about always being available, being focused, and being present, but never missing an opportunity to engage. If somebody needs volunteer work on a committee, I am there. It's because it's again, not something that you always know that you're going to be passionate about. Keep yourself open to those opportunities that you've never experienced before. I think that people are always watching. If you believe that it's all about integrity and doing the right thing all of the time, and knowing that people are watching what you're doing, and they recognize quality. They recognize when you are present. They recognize that you're engaged. We always can see, we know who's engaged and who isn't. And I think always being focused and being engaged is really critical. And I think being open to new challenges, even though it's not something that you ever thought you would do. If I would never have put myself in my career here, where I am today. But I think the fact that if you're open and you're willing, that you never know where it's going to take you.
Wow, that's so inspiring. You never know.
You never know.
That's right. Did you ever think when you started as a nurse that you were going to be an administrator over 3 hospitals?
You know, I would never have said that I would be here. My mother was a nurse too. And so she was very inspiring to me. She was a director of nurses in her career. And I thought, that will never be me. and yet here I am. But you know, it's just so wonderful to be able to make an impact in a different way. And again, I think all of those experiences that you have along the road set you on that path and really make you who you are. And my personal experience have really added to my ability to do the job that I do today. I could not do what I do today had I not had all of those other experiences. So you just need to be open and willing, and you just never know where your journey will take you. And I have no regrets. You can't have any regrets. The only regret you should have is the opportunity that you didn't take. And so if you just always have to try it, you just never know.
That's great. Thank you so much for those words of wisdom. And James, you hire people to teach. So I'm sure that some of the students out there might already think, you know, I think I'd like to teach nursing or teach one of these specialties and be the next Esther and be the next Humphrey or Nelson at Madiba College. How do you look at who you want to hire? What are the qualities and the skills that you look for in general? Would you share those with us, James?
Thank you, Diane. I hope you can now get me.
Yes.
And really, I should comment that it is one thing to get a job, and it's another thing to maintain the job. And one day I got a job, and my second placement, my second employer, and really I was still young, but I had a lot of energy to train the students. I would spend most of the time with my students to ensure that they are getting the right thing. And that one actually was a very big plus. So the most important thing is hard work and determination. The others will follow. Having said that, when we hire like a lecturer or a nurse, we consider the first thing is the academic qualification, that this person is duly qualified and registered by the Nursing Council. With this college, we again look at the working experience, should have at least 2 years of experience in the clinical area. And more so, if we get one that has maybe like 2 years of experience, yeah, it is then an added advantage. In our country, if you want to train a diploma nurse, you should be having a BSN, you should be having a hold of degree and above. That is a regulation. You cannot train a fellow diploma student. It is not allowed. So you must ensure that you go higher so that you are qualified to train. Another thing that we look at is the knowledge aspect. Yeah, you cannot go for an interview when you are blank. You don't know anything, yet you are a nurse or you are a lecturer. So we shall ask you some questions. How do you manage this patient? If you find you are not able to answer the questions, then you are not able, and we are not going to give you an opportunity. We also look at some managerial skills. Are you able to manage the students if left alone? Are you able to manage the curriculum? How are you going to relate with the students? We also look at interpersonal skills. Is this person able to relate with the students well? Is this person able to relate with the others well? Is this person able to relate with the administration well? And another key area we look at is research in terms of guiding even the students and the ability to search for new information. And maybe I'm very fast, but you'll bear with me. We also now at the end of almost at the end of the session, we ask about the salary requirement that that the lecturer needs. He may want too much money that the organization cannot afford. So that one is also something that guides us. So having looked at that, if we found you are favorable, we can give you an opportunity and we give you chance and we observe you for a period of maybe 3 months to see if you are suitable for the training, so that the CEO can give you the final agreement that you can work with us.
Thank you, James. That's really insightful and important. You bring up the aspect of like a 3-month trial. And there's something that we do a lot in the United States. I don't know if you do this in Kenya, but we offer a lot of internships that are unpaid, where people will have the opportunity to volunteer, especially to college age students. You volunteer for a few months, and we get to know each other. So you see if how hard the person works, how much they know, how eager they are to support, and it also gives that person an opportunity to learn about the organization to see if they're going to feel comfortable there. Do they like the other staff members? Do they like the goal of what they're doing, that kind of thing. And so internships, do you have those in Kenya quite a bit, or is it mostly employment that you guys do?
May I chip in,
Sure.
please?
Yes, Dan.
So in terms of staff recruitment, we follow what is called KSA. It's a common practice. I think even Judy knows it. So KSA is knowledge, skills, and ability. It's a Harvard approach to recruitment, professional recruitment. So that is usually done by meeting the requirement as Abuti has stated. Whether you have the first, you must have the you must be a holder of degree in nursing and above. You must have appropriate skills or experience. Usually we state that it must be about 2 years. And ability during the time that you are working, what did you do that is unique, that differentiates you from other people, other applicants? So once that has been done by the team, then they are forwarded to my office for additional tests. The additional tests include aptitude tests. It includes, I do what is called stress interview to see whether the person can handle the stress, because we are exposed to stress all the time. Then we also check on the salary and why one wants to leave where they're working to join us. So I do not concentrate on the KSA. I proceed to do the stress interview, the aptitude test, and finally make a decision. Yeah, so that is just by the way. The other thing that I wanted to mention as we were talking about the nursing career pathway, this is not limited to only students, but all the staff. For we would want to have nurses, even the current nurses, who wants to specialize in nurse midwifery, and we can work with Judy and others to build the capacity of our current working nurses to be to specialize in midwifery, or we can also work with them in research. Of importance, our region has one of the highest maternal and infant mortality, and there is limited research done on diseases like sickle cell disease, on HIV and TB, and other diseases that can lead, that are the main reason why our county experiences one of the highest maternal and infant mortality in the country. And for that reason, we welcome Judy or Don Murray and others to see how we can initiate this. Then the lecturers or nurse educators may, I know with the support from Judy and Don Murray, we can develop a strong nurse researchers that can help us with operational research that thereafter will inform service delivery and policy decisions. Those are the 2 cents that I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. That's great to hear right from Dan. How does he hire a nurse? You heard the secret sauce right there, what the process looks like, what he's looking for. How does he hire a nurse for Madiba? And also bringing up research as an area for nursing. And that what Dan was talking about is you can get training on the job. So you can become a Madiba nurse or work at another hospital. And you can learn a specialty on the job as well, certain things. And he mentioned midwifery. And so it's always important to just see what things are you interested in and start thinking about that and testing those things out. Another really important aspect of a career development is having mentors. It's those personal relationships with people that you can talk to and get advice from, that you can say, I'm really frustrated, or I'm not doing well. Am I in the right place? Or how do I apply for this job? Is it a good fit for me? It's those mentors who guide us, particularly at change points, but really throughout our whole career. And I just want to honor that I have had many, all of us, wherever we are in our career, it's because someone helped us get there. Nobody goes alone. Nobody goes alone. People who go alone do not go very far. People who have these kinds of friendships and mentors go much further. So I wanted to ask James, I think it's Judy actually we're going to go to and ask you about mentoring as you see, some of the mentors you've had in your life, both having a mentor and being a mentor. If you could talk a little bit about those relationships, please.
Yeah, thanks, Diane. I love what you said, that nobody does this alone. I have had the privilege of having some wonderful mentors from nursing school on. Even in school, we had a partner, a senior nurse, who was always partnered with us, and they became somewhat of a mentor and walked us through the program. And in each stage of my career, I can identify somebody who was there for me that I was able to look to, that I was able to confide in, or that I was able to question. And they really, really, I credit them with my success and at so many levels. Just mental health as well. If I was struggling with something, I had the ability to go to them. Academically, I was able to use them as a resource. And so I would say that having a mentor is critical to your success. And the way you choose a mentor, sometimes they're chosen for you, but I always look to somebody who I could just communicate with. Communication skills are obviously critical to the success of the mentor. And then just being a mentor myself. I mentor college students, the nurses who are going through their master's program. I just recently had a student that spent 6 months with me, and just sitting across the desk from them, and the ability to, quote unquote, pick somebody's brain, to be able to ask them any question, and just to be able to sit down at the end of the day and review what we did. What would we do differently? What could I do tomorrow? What could be better? I think mentors are critical to our success. Having one and then being one and seeing it through the eyes of the student as well. So choosing well is really, sometimes it's not a good fit, and you have to be able to recognize that, but then also finding somebody who you can really communicate with, I think, is critical to your success.
Thank you, Judy. And Esther, I know there's a mentoring program at Madiba College. Can you speak to how to really make the most of that relationship that's offered through the mentoring program?
We acknowledge that the nursing students face a lot of challenges, especially in establishing relationships and interacting with the patients, learning to work professionally or learn in the professional environment. So at Matibabu, we have lecturers attached to a group of students, and they walk through these students for the rest of their training, providing professional support and also addressing any personal issues that can interfere with their academic and academic growth. So to make the most of this relationship, the student has to do the work. The mentor is there to provide the assistance and to show you and lead you throughout your journey, but you must be willing to take advice. You must be willing to accept that you are wrong and accept change, be flexible to the new learning opportunities. And also the student has to be very honest to have a healthy relationship between mentor and mentee. It begins with honesty. Then you have to say that I have a problem here, or I don't understand this, this is where I have the challenge, or this is where the problem could be coming from. But if there is no honesty, then it's like the mentee has closed up. You can't really access them. You not know what is going on, or the solution or you are providing to them will not work because you're addressing something which is not based on the truth. And lastly, yeah, being ready to learn and being professional at all times.
Thank you, Esther. That is really wise advice. And I love that you said about you must open up and share. So I think that's the hardest thing to do, but the most important. If you don't tell someone you need their help, if you don't go to them and say, I'm having a problem at home or with this class or with this patient, you can't get their advice. You have to let people know that you need help. And so telling your mentor, listen, something's come up, I want your advice, is one of the best ways to get help and make life easier. So asking for help is one of the biggest lessons we always need to learn. So thank you so much. And we're going to move into the question about how do you manage your home life and your work life as a nurse? So nurses, probably more than anyone, have a lot of stress because you're there at the hospital where anything could happen. Sometimes there's patients who are very sick. Sometimes there might be a patient who doesn't live. Sometimes there's stress. Usually it's stress with the staff members or, the supervisors, or the money's difficult and there's not enough, at home. Maybe there's situations at home where someone is someone is sick, or someone has, just a relationship problem at home, a problem with their children. How do you balance your work life and your home life in such a way that you can stay in nursing and just find a lot of fulfillment? So this question could take a whole lecture to talk about. We're going to just barely touch on it so we can get to student questions. But Judy, I know this is something you care very passionately about. What do you have to say on this topic?
I actually consider that I have two families. I have a work family and I have my home family. And my work family understands things in a way that my home family can't, just because they don't experience, to your point, Diane, what you said, you experience things at work that sometimes no one can comprehend. I can just think of this past year and how I would share some stories and people could not really understand, but I turn to my work family and they understand. They know what you've been through. And so my advice would be to find that colleague, find that person who you can confide in. I said something to you a couple of weeks ago. It's like, I know that if I'm not good at home, I'm not good at work. If I have challenges at home that are unresolved, whatever, they may weigh heavily on me at work, and vice versa. If I'm not able to talk about the things that I've experienced at work, they may come home with me and weigh heavily on me at home. So you have to balance that. And the way I balance that, and the way I encourage my nurses to balance that, is to talk about it. We have debriefings at work. We talk about what happened. There's so much stress. And so we have weekly debriefings. Sometimes we have daily debriefings. It really depends on what's happening. But finding that person that you can confide in and talk to, and then and leaving some of that work at work when you go home, because it can also impact your home life. And so it is a very delicate balancing act at times. But I think having someone to confide in and really being able to go to them if you're struggling with something. And I want to acknowledge what Esther said about truth and being honest about what's happening to you. If you're struggling, being able to call that out and talk to somebody about how you're struggling, because I think that's so important to your overall health, and not taking it home with you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really, really important. And we want to make sure that we have some time for student questions. I'm not sure exactly how the students, if there is a particular student who's going to read the questions to us, or how we are doing this aspect, but I'm looking forward to hearing the questions. If not, we actually had a couple of the questions submitted to us early. And so we're absolutely willing to maybe start with one of those while we wait to see how this will work.
I got the question.
Yes, what is the question?
We asked, apart from specializing and education and working within the hospital, what other settings can a nurse work?
Great question. What other settings can a nurse work? Who's got one?
Yes,
Judy, you're shaking your head. Go ahead. James, do you have some ideas?
Yes, and say, when you look at the really definition of a nurse, then it guides you on your operation as a nurse. Having said that, the nurses also work outside the hospital and the education sector. They work in non-governmental organizations dealing with maybe other even insurance companies. They can work in community settings, and they can work even as administrators. But you see, education is power. But having said that, we must restrict ourselves to who a nurse is. From there, we should be guided, and I believe you'll enjoy your nursing.
Thank you. Thank you. Judy, do you have some other settings to add?
I do. You know, one of the latest environments is information technology. We have a lot of nurses who just pursue education and degrees. There's actually nursing degrees in information technology now. They're creating our electronic medical records. They are writing the environment in which we document. So I think information technology is really up and coming, and we see more and more of our nurses going into that. I think the insurance environment, as James said, is really also quite popular as well, and just doing medical record review. The other piece that I have a passion about is risk management. One of my roles, previous roles, is also as the hospital risk manager. And so the focus with patient safety and being able to, I have myself been to court many times on behalf of the hospital. And so working in a legal environment and partnering with the hospital council to support the hospital in risk and legal issues is quite a popular environment as well.
Thank you. That expands it quite a bit. And Esther, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, to add to that, nurses can also be involved in research and working in occupational health, environmental health, providing school health services. So it's quite an array of opportunities that are available for the nurse outside the hospital setting. So you can still take these patients or these communities at different levels. You can take care of the sick. You can take care of those who are not yet sick, but because you don't want them to get sick, through primary prevention. But we can also provide education to these individuals with affected families, providing home-based care services to the target group. Thank you.
Thank you. This was an excellent question. I just want to add one more piece to it. there is a large number of Kenyans in particular that I've been meeting who are entrepreneurs. And if you have a nursing degree or a nursing diploma, you have a field of study, and you start looking at how can that be improved, either by technology or by service delivery. Many people start their own businesses based on how to improve health in Kenya. And so it's not just nonprofit or for-profit hospitals. There's a lot of business development. There's all sorts of pharmacy and, the supply chain. It goes on and on. So there's really many different settings. That was an excellent question. Thank you so, so much. Is there another question we could take on?
Okay, good evening.
What is your name?
Charles Kidera.
Nice to
Just
meet
have
you.
a question. So let's say like a nurse who has pursued diploma in nursing in Kenya and wants to go and work abroad. While you are there, are you allowed to continue your studies while you are abroad? And in addition of that, how can somebody attain that chance of coming overseas after you've completed your studies in Kenya? Maybe you want to work in the US, you have the ambition. So is there any way that somebody can access to go over European nations? Thank you.
Excellent question. Thank you so much. So I understand the question is, how could somebody possibly further their education or begin to work in, let's say, another country? Could be, anywhere in East Africa. I know there's a great need anywhere in the continent of Africa and Europe. But since we have a guest here from the United States, Judy, what is it? I'm sure that you hire nurses from foreign countries. What is the pathway? What are some of the difficulties? What are some of the important pieces to know if someone wanted to become a nurse in the United States?
All right, thank you. So there's a definite pathway that one must follow. There is actually a commission on graduates of foreign nursing schools. And so they have the role of evaluating school transcripts. So there are specific steps that one must take. First, the requirement is that you have to have a minimum of 2 years of experience before you can even apply for the national licensure exam in the States. And so there's a process. There has to be, you have to apply for someone to evaluate your transcript because they want to make sure that you have met specific educational criteria requirements for the United States. This commission on graduate of foreign nursing schools will evaluate the transcript. Again, then you must pass what we call the Nclex exam, which is the National Council for Licensure examination. And it's a standard examination for every state in the country. Now, some states may have different requirements for foreign nurses to come in, but the examination is the same regardless of where you go. And then there is a language proficiency exam that one must complete as well. The experience is something that, depending on what specialty you want to move into, would determine how much experience you have to have as well. There is a recruitment process. Typically, it's partnering with an agency. Hospitals don't typically recruit directly. There's usually with an agency for foreign nursing students. But then once you have met the criteria and you've passed the Nclex exam, you can pursue additional education if you wanted to pursue a higher level for a master's degree. The education level that is expected is a baccalaureate degree. Many states will require, I can speak to my hospital in California, we will only look at baccalaureate degree nurses. So that's one of the challenges. Not every state has that requirement though. So each state would be different.
Terrific, thank you. Another question. That was a great question.
Hello, Jane.
Yes, Nelson.
The students are with me here, so maybe they can use my computer. Unfortunately, I don't have the video, but you can hear the audio.
Go ahead with your question.
Okay, my question is this. Since I'm training as a registered nurse in Kenya, and Kenya being a developing country, now let's say I have qualified as a registered nurse in Kenya, and I would wish to work in a country like Japan, putting in mind that Japan is a developed country. So once I meet all the criteria and I now traveled, I'm in Japan, should I be worried like I'll have to go to class again, like I'll have to study the health system of Japan before I start working as a registered nurse, or I'll start working because I'm registered? Thank you.
Excellent question. So the question is, if I've qualified, I've passed the test to work in Japan or the United States, do I still need to go to school in Japan or the United States, et cetera, before I can actually get a job? Judy, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so I can tell you that some states will require a minimum of 100. They require what we call a refresher course. They're just wanting to make sure that we, as graduates of different schools, have the competency and the skills to work in a new environment. And so I can tell you that here in the States, you would be required in most places to take a 120 hours of classroom refresher, and then another 120 hours of practical or clinical refresher as part of the entry into the States for a foreign nursing graduate. So, and that may vary depending on where you go, but it is quite likely that you would be required to take some classes. And then again, it depends on the proficiency. So if you maybe had a weakness in a certain area, mathematics or whatever, you might be required to take a math refresher course. So it just really depends on that state's requirements, or I can't speak to outside of the States, but I can say that it's 120 hours of clinical and 120 hours of classroom refreshers.
Thank you. And yeah, obviously there's Judy's in California, so she knows what the requirements are in California. Other states where it might be even more difficult to get a nurse, there is a shortage of nurses in the United States. There might be different requirements, but most likely something in classroom and something practical that you would have to do. That's a great question. I see another student up front. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Beatrice.
Beatrice, nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was asking, do nurses also have their rights?
So the question is, patients have rights. Do nurses have rights? Can you give a situation where this would be important? So we have some context.
Okay, let's say in a scenario where a patient meets a nurse, where a patient or a fellow nurse meets another nurse.
Okay, I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding the question. A patient beats a nurse?
Yeah, a patient beats a nurse.
Like physically attacks a nurse. Yeah. Okay, that's really a great question. Is that correct? That's the correct question? Because this does happen, especially in a psych ward or some situations where a patient is aggressive. And what are the rights of the nurses? James or Esther, you want to talk specifically about Kenya, and we'll get a response from Judy as well? Because safety on the job for the nurses is also very important. And I think most hospitals, would agree with that. Esther or James, would you like to take that?
Since I started working, yes, I have had cases where the nurse was attacked. In fact, there was a case where the patient relatives in Maasai land attacked the doctor with a stick. because the patient had died. It happened and it was very bad. Again, we had a patient who attacked the nurse at the mental hospital, and the patient was actually beaten. The nurse was beaten by the mentally sick patient. I may say it is a very rare occurrence. Rarely happens, but we need the hospital cover, because these are patients. Sometimes we don't have the legal way of handling it, because they come to the hospital and it's very difficult. But if it occurs, it is a very rare occasion. Rarely it occurs. That is my observation. But I have not come across any rights of the patient, of the nurse, when handling the patient. I have not come across any research talking about that. Unless, Judy, you have heard.
So I can take it from, I can tell you that in the States, we're seeing more and more incidents of we call workplace violence. You may hear, we hear it almost daily. And so at my particular organization, we have a team that's called the Safe Workplace Intervention Team. And that team is a response team when we have challenging patients, when patients are using aggressive behavior or foul language. We will come together and develop a safety plan for the staff. So for example, if we have an aggressive patient, we may say that you cannot go in the room alone. You always have to take a buddy, a partner with you, so that we can ensure that you're safe. That we come together and we develop a plan to keep the staff safe, because unfortunately, we're seeing more and more escalating behaviors and where staff are put at risk, particularly in the emergency departments. And we know patients are in crisis when they come. They are not happy. Nobody wants to be in the hospital, right? And so we know that when patients are in crisis, they can lash out. So we have unfortunately experienced quite a number of cases where staff have been abused or hit or for whatever reason. And so we have developed this response team, particularly in those cases.
So that's a really great question, Beatrice. Thank you for bringing that.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
that is just such a great question. And I think, we're getting short on time here, but that's something that we can address again, because I do know, as COVID, in the United States has grown, sometimes clients and patients get more agitated and worried. There's a lot of fear associated as well. And so how we are as a team and how we help each other and how we present ourselves when we walk into a room to deal with a patient can really help keep us safe as well. And safety for the nurses is really, really important. One thing we know is we always want to control things in that environment without using violence ourselves. And so being able to what we call de-escalate a situation where someone's getting agitated or someone's violent, what do you do in order to de-escalate the situation so it doesn't get worse and worse and worse, but it gets more and more controlled? And one of the biggest things is, like both people said, not to be alone, is to have more staff with you, and to make sure you tell your supervisor so everybody's aware that there's a patient who is acting out, and and focus on what is the patient's need. What are they trying to say through their action? Are they afraid? Are they angry? Thank goodness that Madiba has a social worker on staff that can also help in these situations. So you want to know who are the team members at the hospital who are trained to work in these kinds of situations, because anything can happen when you serve the public. And that's part of what we do. And it's part of what makes a great nurse too. So I think that was an excellent question, Beatrice, and thank you, Herbert, and I think it was Elijah, I'm not sure, the other person who asked questions. Those were great questions. We fully expected you to ask, how much money does a nurse make? So we're not going to we're not going to answer that today. We will discuss that on the next series, and that will be a few months from now. We're going to bring back a team of nurses, and we're going to add a couple more people to the team to hear their ideas as well, as we keep talking about issues related to the career of nursing. And it's just, I got to tell you, it's an honor to be with each one of you today, both of you that are both groups, the hospital group and the hospital staff, and especially the students today. So I want to thank each one of our speakers. It's been a pleasure to get to know James and Esther better. And I'm so thankful that you are here at Madiba. And Judy, it's just wonderful to have you as part of the Tiba family now and the Madiba family. I fully expect you're going to be in Kenya soon. And to close us out, let's have Dan Ogola say any last words. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for buying out time to be in attendance. It was a great opportunity to learn a lot from you. And through communication, even us in administration can improve on our managerial role. As an organization, as a learning organization, we would like some of the practicing nurses to start thinking seriously about doing perioperative nursing. Would like some of the nurses and the nurse educators to think seriously about research. And Judy would want to welcome you. We have some very interesting diseases such as sickle cell disease, which is a contributor to high infant mortality in our area. And we would want to welcome you to join us, to join our effort on starting a research department and carrying out research. Thank you so much for everything. And you are all most welcome to help us help our community and make a better Matiba. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Great to see all of you today. Thank you again to our panelists and to our interns who are helping with this call. And Tara, appreciate you. And we will see you again next month. We're going to have a very special group of Madiba leaders who will be talking about a particular quality improvement project that they're working on, and we'll share that process with the entire group. So we look forward to seeing you again next month. And until then, please be well and be safe. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.